Announced, and then silence. Delayed, again and again and again. Cancelled, after years of hype. Millions of dollars, hours upon hours of time, and decades of life wasted. Why does this happen? And is it avoidable? This is the place where promising games are sent to die. Welcome to Development Hell.
Fun. Was it good for you, baby? What about the game, Duke? Was it any good?
Yeah, but after 12 fucking years, it should be.
Development hell, also known as development limbo or development purgatory, is when a game gets stuck in a cycle of delays, reboots, or cancellations, sometimes for years. Some eventually escape, but for others, it's terminal. But why? In project management terms, there's a word called scope creep. When a project's vision keeps expanding beyond what's realistic, it can have horrible consequences. New features, engine changes, or story write-ups pile up, and suddenly, a 3-year project becomes a 10-year nightmare. Announced in 1997, released in 2011. After 14 years of struggle, Duke Nukem Forever became a bastion of an example for what not to do when making a game. Duke Nukem Forever was officially announced in April of 1997. The 3D Realms team had the intention of a full release a little over a year later, in 1998. The team decided to license the brand new Quake 2 engine, which was far superior to its predecessor, the Duke Nukem 3D engine. And since they wanted Duke Nukem Forever to be groundbreaking, this switch seemed like a no-brainer. A $500,000 no-brainer at that, as this was the price of licensing the engine. At E3 in 1998, 3D Realms showcased the first look into Duke Nukem Forever, using the Quake 2 engine with a trailer showcasing Duke in his next-gen glory. But George Broussard, the man at the helm of the game's development, was not satisfied with the game's progress. Soon after their E3 showcase, Epic Games had announced a little-known engine called Unreal. And with Broussard's team having been struggling with the Quake 2 engine, they decided to again switch engines to Epic's new and more realistic-looking counterpart. Broussard stated at the time that the game would not be critically delayed by the engine change. This was his first mistake. 3D Realms programmers understood that the Epic Games switch would result in a thorough reboot of the game's content, and the project as a whole. And by 1999, the team would miss many deadlines for the game's release. The Duke Nukem Forever team was no doubt talented, so why did the game take so long? The real reason? Indecision. See, Broussard kept chasing the latest trends. Literally. Former developers joked that if Broussard saw a cool new game, he'd demand something similar be added to Duke Nukem Forever. Then, in the middle of development, he decided to switch to a newer version of Unreal Engine, one built for multiplayer, not the single-player experience they were making. And here's the real problem. No clear vision. Employees said Broussard never locked down what the final game should even be. The Project Management Institute, or PMI, calls this a failure in scope management, or not properly defining and sticking to the project's goals. Meanwhile, their publisher, GT Interactive, was struggling financially, leading to a buyout by Infogrames. And by 2000, the rights to Duke Nukem Forever shifted again, this time to a gathering of developers. The developers would often complain that Broussard and his partner Scott Miller were working with a quote 1995 mentality, with only a little under 20 employees working on Duke Nukem Forever by 2003. Other major game studios at this time used larger teams, and since Broussard and Miller were funding the development themselves, it allowed them to escape the pressure applied by their publisher. This mentality by the directors of Duke Nukem Forever got them into scuffles with the CEO and leadership over their lengthy development time and lack of proper planning. And by mid-2006, many of their employees had left. Broussard would deny claims that this turnover in workers would delay the game further. By the second quarter of 2008, Take-Two would fire the Duke Nukem Forever staff and discontinue development of the game. By 2011, the game had been taken on by ex-employees at Gearbox Software, and eventually the game would finally be released in June of that year, over 15 years after the game's development had started. The game was released with less than stellar reviews by critics, with GameSpot giving the game a measly 3.5 out of 10. And with the advancement of consoles, engines, and development over the 15 years of the game's development, it's safe to say that Duke was left behind. Scope creep was a massive factor in 3D Realm's failure. PMI defines scope as the work that is required to deliver a project's deliverables, including all activities, products, and resources involved. It essentially defines what the project will and will not do, and acts as a boundary for the project. The Duke Nukem Forever team did not know what they wanted, and failed to make smart goals that would guide them to a successful product. With Broussard and Miller seemingly hungry to make the greatest game possible, they became blind to the risks associated with creating large piles of features, wasting money on switching engines instead of working what was already licensed, and brushing off pressures put on by their superiors. Their scope was too broad, and their pockets too full, and thus, the cool, fearless Duke became a laughingstock of gaming history, dubbed the King of Development Hell.
Hey guys, according to the stats from the last video, only 4% of you watching are subscribed. Help us out by hitting the like and subscribe button, and leave a comment if you liked the video.
Perhaps one of the most infamous cases of development hell all started with a mod. In the late 90s, Team Fortress began as a beloved free mod for Quake, created by Robin Walker and John Cook. It was a class-based multiplayer first-person shooter, originally designed for personal use. Cook and Walker held a desire for a multi-class experience with a variety of uniqueness to each class's playing style. This endeavor caught on quickly with players, and spawned a modding culture around Team Fortress that inspired many to mod their favorite games. Recognizing their success, Walker and Cook were soon hired by Valve to turn their popular mod into its own intellectual property, and Team Fortress 2, now dubbed Valve's Team Fortress, was born. The first real look into the game came at E3 1999. It was called Brotherhood of Arms, and it was wildly ambitious. Realistic war zones, commanders with overhead views, parachute drops, voice chat, even early parametric animation and mesh scaling technology. It was ahead of its time. Perhaps too ahead. Then, radio silence. After a brief media burst, Team Fortress 2 vanished. No release date, no updates, no screenshots, for 6 straight years. TF2 became the punchline of vaporware jokes, joining the ranks of Duke Nukem Forever. Internally, Valve wasn't standing still. They, like the 3D Realms team, decided to switch engines to Valve's now infamous Source engine, while Walker and Cook bounced to other projects, including Half-Life 2 and Steam. And TF2, it mutated. Then, out of nowhere, boom, July 2006. 7 years after its E3 appearance, a new TF2 trailer dropped. Gone was the gritty realism. In its place, a vibrant, cartoonish style, inspired by 20th century illustrators like J.C. Leyendecker and Norman Rockwell, with the stylized charm akin to Disney's Pixar movies. But it wasn't just a visual glow-up. This version was designed for readability. You could tell a class just by the silhouette. Maps were impressionistic. Bases had unique architecture, and even color theory behind red's warm wood versus blue's cold steel. Under the hood, TF2 was now a source-powered beast. Dynamic lighting, facial animation systems, developer commentary built right in. The final version wasn't just about class-based gameplay. It was about personality. The beta dropped in September of 2007, bundled with the Orange Box, and when Team Fortress 2 finally released on October 10, 2007, after 9 years in limbo, it was worth the wait. Critics loved it. IGN praised the graphics and charm. PC Gamer gave it a 94. XPlay, a perfect 5 out of 5. TF2 went from development hell to one of the highest rated multiplayer shooters of all time. The divergent outcomes of Team Fortress 2 and Duke Nukem Forever can be attributed to their distinct project management methodologies. Team Fortress 2 exemplified effective project integration management by aligning its evolving project components cohesively. Valve's iterative development approach allowed for adaptive planning and integration of new ideas without derailing the project's core objectives. In terms of scope management, Valve demonstrated flexibility by revisiting and redefining the game's scope, ultimately settling on a stylized, cartoon-like aesthetic that resonated with players. This adaptability ensured that the project remained aligned with both creative vision and technical feasibility. Team Fortress 2's story isn't just about perseverance. It's about evolution, reinvention, and knowing when to throw out the rulebook to make something better. In a world full of rushed releases and abandoned promises, TF2 proved that sometimes development hell can forge gold. In the realm of video game development, few titles have experienced a journey as tumultuous as Beyond Good and Evil 2. Announced in 2008, this ambitious spiritual successor to the 2003 cult classic has been ensnared in development hell for over 17 years, surpassing Duke Nukem Forever's infamous 15-year development cycle. The game's wobbly development has been marked by shifting visions, leadership changes, and technical challenges. Initially envisioned by creator Michael Ansel as a direct narrative sequel, retaining its linear structure and narrative focus, the project underwent significant transformations. By 2017, the game had shifted to a prequel narrative, introducing a vast, open-world environment set in a diverse solar system. Players would assume the role of customizable characters, starting from the lowest social strata and ascending through the ranks by completing missions, acquiring spacecraft, and recruiting new crew members. This progression system marked a departure from the original game's fixed protagonist and linear storyline. The introduction of the Voyager engine facilitated procedural generation of planets, enabling seamless space travel and exploration. This technological leap aimed to create a living, breathing universe, where players' choices would influence the game's world and narrative. The game also planned to incorporate both single-player and cooperative multiplayer modes, requiring a constant internet connection even for solo play. Despite these once ambitious features, the game's mechanics may be quickly falling behind, with the release of many space and seafaring games in recent history. Ansel's departure from Ubisoft in 2020, amid reports of unorganized leadership, further compounded this project's instability. Despite these setbacks, Ubisoft has maintained that Beyond Good and Evil 2 remains in development. In 2023, following the untimely death of creative director Emily Morel, industry veteran Fauzi Mesmar was appointed to steer the project forward. However, as of 2025, no release date has been announced, and the game's future remains uncertain. The saga of Beyond Good and Evil 2 serves as a cautionary tale in project management. Unlike Team Fortress 2, which overcame development challenges through the adaptive planning and cohesive vision, Beyond Good and Evil 2 has struggled with scope management and consistent leadership. The question now stands: will it emerge as a testament to resilience and effective project management, or will it join the annals of games that never fulfilled their promise? As we await further developments, Beyond Good and Evil 2 remains a symbol of both the perils and potential of ambitious game development. Duke Nukem Forever became the bad example. A relic of shifting engines, abandoned milestones, and a game that, when finally launched, felt like a fossilized version of a vision long lost. It showed us what happens when a project lacks consistent leadership, scope control, and stakeholder alignment, the very foundations of proper project integration and risk management. On the other side, we have Team Fortress 2, a game that also vanished for nearly a decade, but emerged as a masterpiece of stylized multiplayer chaos. Why? Because behind the silence was iteration, re-evaluation, and most importantly, adaptive project management. Valve embraced the change, focused their scope, and used the flexibility of agile development to pivot when needed. They didn't cling to a dying vision, they sculpted a new one that worked. And now, we come to Beyond Good and Evil 2, a game still orbiting in limbo. It's ambitious, beautiful, and brimming with potential. But it stands at a crossroads. Will it follow the footsteps of TF2, rise from the ashes with clear direction and renewed design purpose? Or will it be remembered as another Duke Nukem, a project drowned by its own scope and lost leadership? A new king. In the end, it's not just about making a game, it's about finishing one, and finishing it well. The story of development hell isn't just about failure, it's about how you climb out. Hey guys, Centurion here. I want to thank you all for watching the video once again, and thank you for all the support you gave us on our last video. And it performed much better than either of us were expecting, so thank you.
Hey guys, Reagan the editor here. Just wanted to say, same thing as Centurion, thank you so much for watching. Video performed much better than either of us expected. Appreciate the likes, the comments. All of you guys are so great. Stay tuned, we got more stuff in the future. Thank you so much again for watching.